Korach assembles a team comprised of Dasan and Aviram, On and Peles, and these 250 leaders of Klal Yisrael, who all gather against Moshe and Aaron. The Torah tells us that there were two miraculous punishments, two very different punishments that were meted out against Korach's assembled partners. On the one hand, the 250 Nesiim, the 250 leaders, were burned alive by an Esha Yatzame Es Hashem. And on the other hand, we have the swallowing up, the very miraculous swallowing up of another group from Korach's assembled partners. The Gemara tells us a very interesting point in Sanhedrin Daf Kuf Yud that the Gemara is medayek from Psukim that on the one hand, there's two Manda Amars. One Manda Amar says that on the one hand, Korach was not part of the Bluim. Korach himself was not swallowed up, based on the pasuk that says that those who were swallowed were Ha'adam Asher LeKorach, but not Korach himself. And the Gemara says further that Korach was also not one of those who was burnt up, because it was only the 250 men who were burnt, but not Korach himself. So even though there were these two miraculous punishments, one was against the 250 men, and one was against the people who were with Korach, but Korach himself was punished with neither the fire nor being swallowed up. The other Manda Amar in the Gemara says that Korach receives both punishments. Korach was both swallowed up and also burnt. What is going on in this Gemara? What is the Gemara trying to tell us? What are Chazal telling us? That there were these two miraculous punishments that it says in the Psukim, and Korach either received neither of them or both of them. Both Manda Amrim seem very surprising. The Maharal explains that each of these punishments was specific to a particular Avera. The 250 men who brought Ketores in their quest to be Kohanim were obviously misguided. They obviously were supposed to accept that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had chosen Aaron HaKohen, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had directed Moshe Rabbeinu to appoint Aaron as the Kohen Gadol. But to some degree, they were striving for something greater. They wanted more Kedusha, and they were totally misguided, but there was something great about their request, and that is why their punishment was an Eish Yatzam Es Hashem. The Eish that burns people who come too close. People come closer than they're supposed to. Just like Nadav and Avihu were burnt up because they came too close, so too these 250 men were burnt because they came too close. There was something positive in them, and the Eish which burns a person who comes too close, who doesn't respect boundaries that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sets, that's the punishment that they got. And on the one hand, Korach was like them in a certain regard. He too was striving for something, and that's the pshat in the second Manda Amar, that he was also burnt up. But on the other hand, and this is what the first Manda Amar is focusing on, he's very different from them. He was going against Moshe Rabbeinu for completely different reasons as well. What about Dasan and Aviram? Why were they swallowed up? The Maharal explains that the swallowing up by earth is that the Gehenna itself swallows a person, that a person is a Baal Machlokes, who has no stake in the game. He's just there to fight because he wants to disagree. Dasan and Aviram had nothing to gain. They were not attempting to be Kohanim Gedolim. They were not Bnei Levi who were jockeying for position within the broader family of Levi. They were just there to fight. Just like we find in Parashat Shmos, that Dasan and Aviram are people who fight. So they just came to fight. They just wanted to make machlokes. As we see Chazal call them, Bali machlokes, that we learn from Moshe Rabbeinu how a person needs to distance himself from machlokes, the way that Moshe Rabbeinu tried his best to appease Dasan and Aviram. They're the epitomes they're the paradigms of Bali machlokes, and a Baal machlokes goes straight to get him. That is what the Maharal says. So what about Korach? Korach, according to the first Manda Amar, well, he wasn't purely a Baal machlokes. He was also interested. He had his own self-interest. He wasn't just Stam trying to fight. He had a self-interest. He was looking out to feed, and that's why he wasn't one of the people who swallowed up. And the second Manda Amar says that he was also swallowed up because in addition to his wanting to come close to the Kahuna, he also just wanted to fight. He had both, right? So both Maharals is telling us that both opinions in the Gemara are expressing the point that Korach was different from both the 250 men and different from Dasan and Aviram. He had both the element of wanting more Kedusha and the element of just wanting to make a machlokes. So one Ma'an Damar expresses that by saying he had neither punishment, and the other Ma'an Damar expresses it by saying he had both punishments. The question that this Gemara leaves us with is, how did Korach bring together such a strange coalition? 250 men who are striving for Kedusha, and Das and Aviram who just want machlokes, have nothing to do with each other. The Gemara is expressing to us that the two punishments that HaKadosh Baruch Hu meted out one after the other demonstrate that we're talking about two completely different groups. People with different interests, people with different motivations, people who come to completely different ends. Why is Korach in the middle? And the answer, Il-Chor, is clear. That when a person is completely driven by his Yetzer Hara, when a person is filled with envy and kina, desire for something what somebody else has, and he'll stop at nothing to get it, then he will bring together a coalition of whoever is willing to support him in his quest, no matter how strange that coalition is. Korach is filled with kina for Moshe Rabbeinu, for Aaron HaKohen. He wants everything. He has so much, and all he sees is what he lacks. And he builds a coalition of anybody who will come with him to attack Moshe Rabbeinu, to convince Klal Yisrael to support him in his bid to unseat Moshe Rabbeinu from his power. And that leads him to assemble this very strange coalition of Nadav and Avihu on the one hand, and the 250 men on the other. We see it, of course, nowadays. We see the very strange coalitions that are made in politics around the world between the extreme Islam on the one hand, the far progressive left on the other, people who Ba'atzim have nothing to do with each other, but are joined together by one anti-Semitic ideology. What do we take from this? Hopefully, we're not smitten with far left progressive ideology. Hopefully, we're not smitten with extremist Islamic ideology. Hopefully, we're not Korachs. I think what we take from this is that we all have self-interest, and we all are willing sometimes to do things that don't make any sense because of our self-interests. And it takes something like a Korach event to open our eyes and require and demand that we ask ourselves, are we consistent? Do the people that we associate with, do they reflect our values, or do they reflect our self-interests? That we think this person can help us to gain money, to gain power, to gain prestige. And we have to ask ourselves, the coalitions that we make, the alliances that we build, the friendships that we develop, are they l'shem shamayim, or are they perhaps also color of self-interest? Mitzvah Hashem, we should take the opportunity of Parshas Korach to not dismiss Korach, but to learn from Korach, to appreciate who he was, what happened to him, and to understand that sometimes we could fall into a similar trap as well. Have a wonderful Shabbos.